Hi, my name is Gloria, and I'm going to be reading part 2 of Wonderstruck by Brian Selznick, creator of the Caldecott's Medal winner, The Invention of Hugo Cabret. Billy came over. He looked at all the space stuff and said, "Oh, I get it. You're an alien." Ben laughed along with Billy, but every time he looked through his telescope after that, he had the same thought. I'm an alien. Ben put the bumpy gray stone back in its little compartment. For a moment he wondered again about the quotes and what his mom thought it meant. But it passed out of his mind, and as he lifted a bird skull from the box, he found the skull on one of his weekend walks with his mom on the Gunflint Trail. He ran his fingers over the smooth dome of the head and the sharp points of the beak. His mom had made him research what kind of bird it was, and he found out it was a waxwing. He read all the bird books in his mom's library and could now identify 23 different species just by looking at their bones. In a book about the birds of Minnesota, he'd come across a reference in the Dulce Museum and their collection of bird skeletons. "Can we go there, Mom?" he asked. "It's only 4 hours away." His mom had tightened her ponytail and said she'd think about it. The more Ben read about the museum's collections, the more he wanted to go to Dulce. He begged for months until one day she said, "Is that what you want for your birthday this summer? A trip to Dulce?" Yes. Ben practically jumped into the air. "Don't get too excited about it. We'll see," said his mom. Ben wiped his hand across his eyes as if he were rubbing away the vision of Dulce. He put the bird skull back into the box and thought of all the time he'd spent at his mom's library after school, reading up on birds or outer space and doing his homework. If only he had been there the day of the accident instead of sick at home, surely he could have done something to help her. At the very least, he would have seen the snow and ice accumulating on the road and reminding her to put on her seatbelt. How he wished he could go back in time. Ben took a deep breath and closed his eyes, knowing he'd never go to Dulce. His aunt and uncle could afford a trip, especially now that they had to take care of him. Even though he loved them, he didn't feel at home with his aunt or uncle. But where else could he live? He didn't have any other family. His grandparents had died when he was very little, and he never knew anything about his dad. The one time he had hinted around the subject to his mom, she tightened her ponytail a few times and then undid it altogether. As her long black hair spilled down around her shoulders, her eyes filled with tears. Ben had never seen his mother cry before, and it startled him, so he didn't ask again. Right afterward, she put on her favorite record and played a mysterious song called Space Oddity. about an astronaut named Major Tom who gets lost in space. She used to listen to the song over and over again. With her eyes closed, she placed the palm of her hand against the fabric of the speaker so she could feel it vibrate against her skin. In bed that night, staring up into the glowing stars glued to his ceiling, Ben had imagined that Major Tom was his father, and he found himself wondering, what did he look like? Did he know about Ben? Would he ever come back to Earth? Ben opened his eyes and stared into the small circle of light from the flashlights that illuminated the box of his lap. Ever since his mom died, Major Tom had been on his mind. He liked to pretend that Major Tom arrived in a spaceship behind his cousin's house. While his whole family watched, Ben would climb aboard and disappear into the night sky. He knew it was a childish daydream, but it wouldn't go away. From the box, he picked up a little turtle made out of glued together shells. It felt smooth and cool in his hands. His mom had given it to him when he started third grade. It had been a sort of joke between them. When he was very little, she used to call him Turtle because he was so quiet. You know, Turtle, she said before they left for school, you shouldn't be a turtle. Remember to stick your neck out, speak up, and be brave. His mom ran her fingers down his cheek until they touched the underside of his chin, and she lifted his face so their eyes met. Don't be afraid to look at people in the eye when they talk to you, okay? Okay, he said, holding her gaze. That's better. Ben held the turtle tightly in his palm and laid the box and flashlight on his cot. He opened the bug screen in the window and leaned out. The air felt thick against his skin. He looked at his home sitting empty. Through the trees, a mosquito buzzed near his good ear, with his head turned slightly to the right. He could just make out a trucker on Robbie's radio, talking about an approaching storm. Ben looked up at the sky. It was growing overcast, but a few stars twinkled through the gaps between the clouds. He had believed his mother when she told him he'd never be lost as long as he could find the North Star. But now that she was gone, he realized it wasn't true. The mysterious quotes from his mom's bulletin board echoed again and again in his mind. We are all in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars. Hoboken, New Jersey, October 1927. This was Ben's aunt's mom. Her name was Liliana Mayhew. She was really famous, so she was put on tons of comics. This is Ben's aunt when she was little. This is Ben's aunt's room. It is full of books and pictures. This is Rosa's house. This is someone's car driving into the woods. The same person's car is right there, and he arrived at Ben's aunt's house. Ben's aunts see him or her. She is deaf, so she doesn't know how to talk. She can only read what other people write. She just wrote help. The person is approaching to her front porch. He knocks. This is his fist. Ben leaned across Robbie's windowsill until it made a red line across his chest. He watched the clouds roll in. He thought about the times when the aurora borealis, the northern lights, appeared in the night sky. Everyone along the lake would call one another, no matter what time it was, so they could watch the strange shimmering curtains vibrating above them. Even though his mom had quit smoking 2 summers ago, Ben vividly remembered the smell of her cigarettes as they stood outside. She'd cross her arms and blow the smoke out of the side of her mouth. When the air was cold enough, Ben would cross his arms and his mouth as well, which his jacket made her laugh. Then she would open her jacket so Ben could stand inside it with her father, and for hours they would stare heavenward at the beautiful colors in the sky. A sudden streak of light interrupted Ben's memory. Wide-eyed, he watched from the ledge of Robbie's window as a shooting star blazed between the clouds and disappeared. He made a wish about his mom, one that he could never come true. Ben hadn't realized how tightly he had been gripping the seashell turtle until he felt it digging into his skin. He almost cried out, but he caught himself, not wanting to wake Robbie again. That's when Ben noticed something very strange in the black silhouette of his house. 83 steps away, a light had come on. The curtains in his mom's room glowed a bright yellow. Ben stared in disbelief. Feeling dizzy, he placed the turtle in the box, locked it, and tucked it back under the cot. His heart was pounding, and he put an old tank top and slid into his sneakers without bothering to lace them up. He grabbed the red flashlight and slipped silently out of his cousin's house. So this is Ben's aunt. She is trying to escape her house. She jumped onto the tree near the stranger's car, and then she is now running away from her house. She has her help me paper that she was writing. She is running out of her house behind the fences. Water lapped at the dock. The boats clacked against one another. A loon called across the night, and the stones of Gunflint Lake glittered faintly in the darkness. The woods at night were always spooky, and the weak beam of the flashlight didn't stretch very far. Ben window beckoned, staring back through the darkness. Like an unblinking eye under a vault of shaking black branches, he ran. The doors to his house, like nearly the doors along the lake, were unlocked. Ben quietly entered through the back into the kitchen. He moved his small beam of light around the room. The flowers and food from the funnel had just cleared out, but the owl-shaped cookie jar sat on the counter with his head off, the way it's always had. The junk drawer remained closed crookedly. The refrigerator was still covered with his mom's favorite quotes. It was like entering a museum of his old life. Ben realized that he could hear music playing softly in the distance. He turned his head to hear it more clearly, and a chill went down his spine. This is Major Tom to ground control. I am stepping through the doors, and I am floating in the most peculiar way. And the stars look very different today. For here I am sitting in a tin can far above the world. Ben heard footsteps. He turned his good ear toward the direction. He thought the sound was coming from somewhere near his mother's room. He guessed Ben had never really believed in ghosts, although some of the stories his mom had read to him when he was younger had kept him up all at night. He tiptoed slowly down the hall to his mom's room, the blood pounding in his head. A faint smell of cigarette smoke grew stronger, and as he got closer, Ben paused in the hallway, dizzy with fear. You shouldn't be such a turtle. He inched closer until he was right outside her door. He turned off the flashlight and put it in his back pocket. The door was open a crack, and he could see the framed Van Gogh prints, a big black tree, and a swirling night sky with golden stars. A shadow moved across the room. Ben thought about the shooting star and the impossible wishes he'd made. With a trembling hand, he slowly pushed open the door. So this is Ben. Ben's aunt's mom. Ben's aunt. Was breaking out of a fence. Now she is at like a river. She is trying to find someone. She is at the river trying to fold her thing up into a little hat, now into a little boat. She is selling it off into the river. It is now into the ocean, into a whole big city. She was standing with her back to him, wearing her favorite skirts, dancing slowly to the music. A cigarette dangled carelessly in her left hand. Ben felt his knees buckle, and when he tried to steady himself, the door suddenly opened wider, making a loud creaking sound. His mother whipped around, Ben gasping. It wasn't his mother at all. It was his cousin, Janet. She was wearing his mother's clothes and smoking her old brand of cigarettes. "What are you doing here?" Janet cried, her eyes wide with a shock and embarrassment. "What are you doing here?" answered Ben. "This isn't your house. Those aren't your things." He felt stupid for thinking, even for a second, that he could have been his mother. He wiped his eyes quickly so Janet wouldn't see the stars. "You smoke?" Janet looked at the cigarette in her hand as if she had only then realized it was there. She stubbed it out quickly in the glass. She was using it for an ashtray. "No, well, yes," she said. "I mean, only sometimes. It's just, oh, God, please don't tell my parents. They'll kill me." "Why are you here? I don't understand. You are wearing my mom's clothes." "Oh, Benji, this was supposed to be my secrets." Janet sat on the bed, buried her face in her hand, and started to cry. So I'm going to stop there. I will see you in part 3 tomorrow. Bye.